Rome did not celebrate, Rome observed. June 1934. The streets were draped in flags, yet the silence was disciplined. Dark uniforms moved through the squares. Italy was living under a regime that understood all too well the power of image. For the first time, the World Cup had come to Europe. 4 years earlier, the tournament had been a bold undertaking by a small South American nation. Now it was being staged at the heart of a firmly established authoritarian state. Benito Mussolini's Italy did not view the World Cup simply as a sporting competition. It saw it as a display of power. The country had invested heavily in the organization. Stadiums were renovated. Infrastructure was put in order. Protocols were strict. The presence of the state was visible, though rarely overt. Power did not need to introduce itself. It was there in the architecture, in the order, in the collective discipline. Europe was passing through an unsettled period. The economic crisis still lingered. Authoritarian regimes were gaining ground. Germany was in the early years of National Socialism. The continent seemed to be breathing under strain. Football offered an international stage. Unlike 1930, this edition required qualifying matches. 16 national sides took part. Uruguay, the reigning champions, did not attend, a decision widely interpreted as a political response to the lack of European interest in the inaugural tournament. FIFA was still establishing its authority. The World Cup needed to prove that it could succeed beyond South America. Italy, in that respect, offered efficiency. In the host cities, the atmosphere was meticulously arranged. Rome, Milan, Turin, Florence. Large crowds filled the grounds, but always within a carefully managed setting. The stands were not merely home to supporters. They had become an extension of the state's narrative. The Italian press treated the tournament as a national mission. Among the Italian players was Giuseppe Meazza, already recognized as one of Europe's great footballing talents. There were also the so-called Oriundi, players born in South America who had been naturalized as Italians. On the pitch, the matches were hard-fought, intense, physical. Some refereeing decisions gave rise to suspicion, particularly in the tie against Spain, which required a replay, and again in the semi-final against Austria, the famed Wonder Team. Historians still debate the extent of any political pressure, but what remains beyond dispute is the context. The final was held in Rome, at the national stadium of the Fascist Party. Mussolini's presence in the stands was highly symbolic. The event was not merely sporting, it was institutional. Italy defeated Czechoslovakia after extra time. The victory was immediately absorbed into the regime's narrative. Photographs circulated across Europe. Football had served its symbolic purpose. Yet to reduce 1934 simply to propaganda would be too simplistic. The organization was efficient. The structure helped consolidate the tournament's format. The World Cup gained European legitimacy. The event demonstrated that it could endure and grow. At the same time, it established a precedent. Sport could be used as an instrument of political projection, as a means of shaping identity, as a mechanism for international assertion. A few years later, the continent would descend into war. The 1934 World Cup remains a quiet landmark of that era, and that relationship between sport and power would continue for decades. Because the history of the World Cups does not unfold only on the pitch, it unfolds behind the scenes, in offices, in decisions never fully seen. And in 1934, the world saw that a stadium could be a stage, but it could also be a showcase.